The darkest sign in a person's mind, revealed by Carl Jung. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Every person carries a hidden side within a shadow that quietly shapes how we see the world and how we treat others. The most dangerous sign in a person's mind, Jung revealed, is not anger, pride, or fear, but projection. When we refuse to see our own darkness and instead accuse others of what lives inside us. The real journey of spiritual wisdom begins when you dare to look within, to confront what you've denied, and to turn your inner shadow into light. So, as you watch this video, ask yourself, what parts of me have I been fighting against? Comment below your thoughts, because awareness is the first step toward transformation. 1. The root of the most dangerous sign. Shadow projection. Carl Jung described shadow projection as one of the most dangerous forces within the human mind, a psychological trap that destroys clarity and self-awareness. It begins the moment we reject the traits we dislike in ourselves, our selfishness, ambition, jealousy, or even our hunger for power, and unconsciously project them onto others. The man who denies his own aggression will call others violent. The one who suppresses his ambition will accuse others of greed. In doing so, he lives under a dangerous illusion that he is pure while the world around him is corrupt. This is the blindness that leads to judgment, resentment, and the slow decay of the soul. In the realm of spirituality, this projection is not merely psychological. It is a spiritual disease that feeds on ignorance and pride, keeping a man trapped in separation from his higher self. When Jung studied the human psyche, he saw that projection was the mind's way of avoiding confrontation with its own shadow. It's easier to see evil in the faces of others than to admit its reflection in your own eyes. This is why so many people live in cycles of conflict, never realizing they are at war with themselves. Every person who irritates you, every trait you despise in someone else, is a mirror revealing what you have not yet accepted in your own being. Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." Yet instead of listening to that call for understanding, the unawakened man pushes it away, insisting that the problem is always out there. This resistance is the greatest obstacle to spiritual awakening. To awaken spiritually is not to become angelic, it is to become honest. It is to stand before your shadow without denial, to see that within your heart lives both the saint and the sinner, the creator and the destroyer. The journey of self-realization demands courage. The courage to look inward when the ego wants to point outward. The courage to ask, "Why does this trigger me?" instead of saying, "They are wrong." Every irritation becomes a lesson, every judgment a mirror, every shadow a doorway to consciousness. When a man learns to walk through these doorways instead of shutting them, he begins to integrate his disowned parts and reclaim his wholeness. As Jung taught, integration is the path to authenticity. When you face your shadow, you release the energy trapped within repression. Your suppressed desires become creativity. Your hidden anger becomes power. Your envy transforms into inspiration. But when you refuse this process, you remain spiritually blind, inflated by false morality and fragile in the face of truth. The man who integrates his shadow becomes unshakable, humble, and real. He stops projecting darkness onto the world because he recognizes it as his own. He no longer seeks enemies outside himself because he understands that the battle was always within. This is the essence of spirituality, not escaping darkness, but transforming it into light. Spiritual awakening is the moment you realize that what you judged in others was the part of yourself still waiting for love. When you stop running from your shadow, you stop living in fear. You begin to see with spiritual clarity that there is no purity without awareness, no light without shadow, no awakening without humility. Jung's wisdom reminds us that the most dangerous sign in the human mind is not hatred or anger, it is self-deception. And the only cure is awareness, to see, to accept, and to integrate every hidden corner of the soul until nothing remains unseen. Comment below. I choose to face my shadow with courage. If you're ready to stop projecting your pain onto others and start walking the path of true spiritual awakening, remember, real freedom begins when you dare to look within. 2. The case of Friedrich, from collapse to awakening. Friedrich was a philosophy professor who spent years blaming the world for its dishonesty, convinced that everyone around him was deceitful and insincere. He came to Carl Jung filled with contempt for humanity, claiming that no one could be trusted. Yet Jung, observing him quietly, saw that Friedrich's anger was not about others at all. It was a mirror reflecting his own disowned traits. Jung helped him realize that he was the common denominator in every conflict, that what he despised most in others was what he unconsciously refused to face within himself. The moment this truth surfaced, Friedrich's carefully constructed image of moral superiority collapsed. What he mistook for failure was actually the beginning of his transformation, the shattering of illusion that forced him toward self-integration and true spiritual growth. At first, he resisted the insight with all his strength. Like most people, he could not bear the idea that the darkness he saw in others might be his own reflection. But the shadow has a way of demanding recognition. The more we deny it, the louder it knocks. As Jung taught, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Friedrich began to see that the dishonesty he accused others of was not an external problem, but an internal one. The projection of qualities he had buried deep within himself. Every lie he pointed out in others was a truth he couldn't face in his own heart. Every act of judgment became a mirror that revealed his inner wounds. Through this painful confrontation, he came to understand that self-awareness is born not from peace, but from conflict, and that the road to authenticity always runs through the valley of humility. As his perception shifted, so did the world around him. The faces that once provoked his anger now appeared softer, more human. He began to see that reality had never been against him. It was reflecting him. Jung called this the process of individuation, the integration of shadow and self, through which a person becomes whole. In spiritual terms, it was a rebirth. Friedrich's collapse was a sacred breaking, opened the destruction of the false self that allowed his true nature to emerge. His pain, once seen as punishment, became initiation. It taught him that real spirituality isn't about escaping imperfection, but about embracing it with awareness. Through this awakening, he realized that the shadow is not evil, but misunderstood energy, the parts of us that long to be seen, accepted, and transformed. To reject them is to stay divided. To face them is to awaken. Each moment of honesty became a small resurrection. each acceptance a movement toward inner peace. He learned that spirituality isn't about light alone. It's about balancing the meeting point where light and darkness coexist in harmony. Spiritual growth begins when we stop blaming others and begin listening to the whispers of our own soul. Friedrich's journey reveals a truth that applies to every one of us. What we condemn in others often reveals what we have yet to heal in ourselves. When we project our shadow, we live in illusion. When we reclaim it, we begin to see clearly. The world becomes less an enemy and more a mirror. Transformation does not come from fighting what we fear, but from understanding it. The shadow, once embraced, becomes the doorway to light. And through that door, a new self is born, one that no longer hides behind judgment, but walks in awareness, humility, and truth. That is the essence of spiritual growth, not the denial of darkness, but its sacred integration into the wholeness of the human soul. 3. How projection works neurologically. Carl Jung revealed one of the most unsettling yet profound truths about the human mind projection: the invisible force that distorts how we see others and ourselves. Neurologically, this begins with the brain's mirror neurons, which are designed to simulate the emotions and actions of others within us. When we observe someone expressing anger, sadness, or joy, these neurons allow us to experience a trace of their emotion, as if we were living it ourselves. But when we have rejected certain traits within anger, pride, jealousy, or vulnerability, the brain interprets these mirrored emotions as external threats. It convinces us that what we are sensing belongs to the other person, not to us. In that moment, we become blind to our reflection, mistaking our own shadow for someone else's flaw. Over time, the brain encodes these rejected aspects of ourselves as psychological danger zones. Every time we encounter someone who unconsciously reflects these traits, we react defensively, not because they are harmful, but because our ego is protecting us from recognizing something we've buried. This is how projection transforms from a momentary defense into a chronic state of misjudgment and paranoia. We begin labeling people as selfish, arrogant, or manipulative, never realizing that what we hate in them may be what we once disowned in ourselves. Jung called this phenomenon the shadow, the unseen container of all we repress and deny, yet continue to carry in the depths of our psyche. As this dynamic repeats, it creates a self-reinforcing loop that keeps us trapped in illusion. We see only what confirms our biases, and our perceptions harden into conviction. The more we project, the more our outer world mirrors the inner one. Everything that irritates us about others, Jung wrote, can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Yet few are willing to face this mirror, because doing so requires humility and the courage to admit that the darkness we perceive outside may in fact originate within. Imagine walking through life wearing a pair of tinted glasses without realizing it. Every face, every situation appears colored by that lens. Projection works the same way. It filters our reality through unhealed wounds. The friend who intimidates you might simply embody your unrealized confidence. The person who provokes your anger may mirror your suppressed power. The one you admire might represent the greatness you've yet to claim. When you finally pause and turn inward, asking, "What part of me is this showing?" the illusion begins to dissolve. That is the moment self-awareness replaces self-deception. Carl Jung, through his lifelong study of the unconscious, believed that reclaiming these rejected parts is essential for what he called individuation, the process of becoming whole. True spiritual wisdom begins when you stop projecting your inner conflicts onto others and start integrating them into consciousness. The world, then, ceases to be a battlefield of enemies and becomes a mirror of your own soul's evolution. As the great psychologist once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. When you understand projection, you no longer fear your shadow. You learn to embrace it, to see in it not darkness, but the hidden light waiting to return home. 4. Detecting projection. The body scan method. Projection is one of the most deceptive shadows of the human mind. It disguises itself as moral clarity, yet it is born from inner blindness. Carl Jung taught that when we project, we are not truly seeing others. We are only seeing the rejected fragments of ourselves, dressed in their image. When a person accuses someone of being arrogant, selfish, or manipulative, he is often describing the very qualities buried deep within his own psyche. That is why projection feels so charged, so tense, and so self-righteous. It is the ego's desperate attempt to avoid looking inward. In the realm of spirituality and spiritual awakening, projection is the hidden chain that binds us to ignorance, keeping us from the truth of who we are beneath our defenses. Jung once helped a man named Friedrich recognize this illusion through a practice he called the body scan method. Every time Friedrich found himself judging someone, Jung instructed him to stop and turn his attention inward. Scan your body, Jung said. Feel where the tension lives. Is it in your chest, your stomach, your throat? Then ask yourself, could this discomfort be my disowned quality surfacing? It was a humbling revelation. As Friedrich repeated this exercise over time, he realized that almost 9 out of 10 of his judgments were projections of his own unresolved emotions and unaccepted flaws. Each time he felt that righteous heat rise inside him, he discovered it was not the truth, it was the shadow speaking. The recognition was painful, but it also became his liberation. When you look closely, you'll notice that projection always carries a certain emotional charge. The more reactive you are, the more personal it is. The body knows before the mind admits it. The clenched jaw, the shallow breath, the tightening of the chest. These are not reactions to another person's behavior. They are signs of your own hidden wound. Jung taught that awareness of this tension is the first step toward integration. You cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge. Spiritual awakening begins not when you transcend your darkness, but when you turn toward it with compassion and curiosity. True perception, on the other hand, feels calm, balanced, and discerning. It does not shout, accuse, or defend. It observes. It understands. It sees clearly without needing to be right. This is the difference between seeing through the eyes of the ego and seeing through the eyes of the soul. When you are outraged, you are projecting. When you are peaceful, you are perceiving. The awakened man knows this difference instinctively because he has learned to pause before reacting. He has learned to let the body speak its truth before the mind builds its story. This is the essence of Jung's spiritual wisdom. Wholeness does not come from denying the shadow, but from embracing it. The ego seeks purity by dividing itself, but the soul seeks unity by integrating all parts. When you withdraw your projections, you reclaim your power. The traits you once despised in others become mirrors of self-awareness, each one guiding you closer to inner freedom. Every emotion, every irritation, every judgment becomes a messenger leading you toward the truth. And in that truth, calm replaces tension, compassion replaces pride, and awareness replaces illusion. That is when the shadow no longer controls you. You walk beside it, knowing it was never your enemy, only the part of you that longed to be seen. Leave your like and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss deep insights like this. Stay mindful, stay aware, and keep growing in your spiritual awakening. Comment below. I choose awareness over projection to affirm your commitment to self-mastery and inner peace. 5. Reclaiming the shadow. Active shadow reclamation. You don't eliminate projection, you reclaim it. This was Carl Jung's timeless teaching that the path to spiritual growth begins not in denial, but in conscious reclamation. When Jung guided Friedrich through the dark corridors of his mind, he didn't ask him to destroy the shadow, but to sit with it, to visualize it, and to speak to it as if it were a separate being. It was there, in that quiet and uneasy dialogue, that Friedrich finally saw what he had feared his whole life. That the darkness within him wasn't evil at all. It was power, waiting to be understood. The manipulation he despised, the ambition he hid, the envy he condemned, these weren't curses, but neutral forces that needed direction. When used unconsciously, they controlled him. When faced consciously, they became his tools for transformation. Through this process, Jung called active imagination, Friedrich began to form a relationship with the part of himself he had long rejected. He learned that spirituality is not about escaping what's dark, but learning to see the divine even within it. His ambition, once rooted in pride, became the fuel for mastery. His manipulative tendencies, once used for control, transformed into intuition and an ability to read energy and emotion. He began to realize that the shadow was not his enemy, but his greatest teacher, showing him where love and awareness had not yet reached. By naming these traits, owning them, and consciously choosing when to use them, Friedrich reclaimed his power and began walking as a whole being rather than a fractured soul. The integration of the shadow is the essence of real spirituality. It is not about wearing light to hide your darkness, but about merging both so that your soul becomes whole. It's easy to label parts of yourself as good or bad, but when you do, you divide your inner world. Jung taught that wholeness comes only when you can hold opposites without judgment, when you can see that the same fire that destroys can also illuminate. Friedrich's journey reminds us that spiritual growth is not born from suppressing emotion, but from understanding it. Every impulse, every flaw, every fear is a messenger of something deeper waiting to be seen. When you stop rejecting what you are and start conversing with it, your inner world becomes aligned. In the silence of that alignment, a new awareness emerges, one that no longer blames others for what it cannot face within. You stop projecting because you've reclaimed what was lost. You begin to see the same shadow in others with compassion rather than judgment. This is the moment your heart matures, when love extends even to your own darkness. And that is when real transformation begins. Not by pretending to be pure, but by becoming conscious. Because in the language of the soul, nothing within you is meant to be destroyed, only redeemed. rebalanced, and brought back into the light of awareness. 6. Transformation through integration. Through the practice of conscious reclamation, Friedrich began to awaken to the truth that transformation is not about denying what is dark within us, but about integrating it. In only 6 months, he managed to reduce his emotional projections by nearly 90%, and his life began to blossom in every direction. His relationships deepened, his career stabilized, and his emotional world softened into balance. What truly changed, however, was not his outer reality, but his inner alignment. The constant war between emotion and reason began to dissolve, giving rise to a quiet harmony that reflected a profound shift in consciousness. As Carl Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Friedrich discovered that by reclaiming what he once rejected, he could transform it into strength. The very traits he had feared, anger, pride, insecurity, became sources of awareness and creative energy once brought into the light of understanding. This is the essence of what Jung called shadow integration, a process that lies at the heart of spiritual wisdom. Every person carries a shadow, the part of the psyche that holds our denied emotions, fears, and impulses. When we repress or deny these parts, they do not disappear. Instead, they control us from behind the curtain, shaping our behavior and relationships without our awareness. But when we face them honestly and without judgment, they begin to lose their destructive power. The act of integration turns inner conflict into inner strength, chaos into clarity. Through daily self-reflection, journaling, and mindful awareness, Friedrich learned to pause each time he felt the urge to blame or criticize others. Instead of projecting his pain outward, he turned inward and asked himself, what part of me is trying to speak through this moment? Over time, this question became a doorway into peace, humility, and self-acceptance. Modern science now supports what Jung understood intuitively nearly a century ago. Neuroscientific studies reveal that the process of shadow integration strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that governs emotional regulation, decision-making, and empathy. When we stop running from our emotions and instead learn to integrate them, we literally reshape our neural pathways. Reactivity decreases, self-awareness increases, and we develop a deeper resilience to life's challenges. This shows that spiritual awakening is not just an abstract idea. It is a biological transformation. The mind and body, once divided by conflict, begin to function in harmony, reflecting the unity of the soul that Jung believed was the goal of all true individuation. But the journey toward integration demands courage. It requires us to see the parts of ourselves we would rather hide: the jealousy, the resentment, the fear of inadequacy. Jung wrote, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." The darkest sign in a person's mind is not their shadow itself, but their refusal to acknowledge it. Denial breeds projection, and projection breeds suffering. Yet the moment we take ownership of our darkness, we begin to reclaim our power. We no longer need to judge, control, or escape. We begin to live authentically, no longer fragmented but whole. Friedrich's transformation stands as living proof that facing the shadow with awareness can heal not only the psyche, but the entire human being. He learned that the true light of spiritual wisdom does not come from escaping darkness, but from embracing it. As emotion and reason aligned, His life became a reflection of balance rather than battle. Integration, as Jung revealed, is not merely a psychological process. It is a sacred act of remembering who we are beneath the masks and the fears. Through it, every wound becomes a teacher, every flaw a doorway, and every shadow a silent guide leading us back to the light of wholeness. 7. Identifying integrated versus projecting people. People who have truly faced their own darkness speak differently, act differently, and live differently. You can sense it in the calm depth of their words and the quiet strength in their presence. When Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, he wasn't warning us about evil in others. He was asking us to confront the darkness within ourselves. The difference between someone who has integrated their shadow and someone who projects it can be felt long before it's understood. It's a silent energy that either invites peace or provokes chaos. The first sign lies in language. Integrated individuals speak with nuance, allowing for the gray spaces of life. They don't rush to label or condemn. They use language as a bridge, not a weapon. They say things like, "Perhaps, I can see it another way," or "I might be wrong," because they have learned that truth is layered, not absolute. Their speech reflects humility born from self-awareness. But those who project their shadow speak in absolutes: always, never, good, evil. Their tone divides the world into saints and sinners because they cannot bear to see both in themselves. To them, certainty is safety, and complexity is a threat. You can feel the rigidity in their words, as if every sentence is a shield protecting them from self-reflection. The second signal lies in how a person handles feedback. Integrated people stay open. They view feedback as an opportunity to evolve. When you challenge them, they pause, reflect, and often respond with curiosity. They might say, "I hadn't thought about it that way," or "Tell me more." They are not easily offended because they have already faced their own internal criticism. In spirituality and spiritual awakening, this openness is a sacred sign. It means the ego no longer rules the soul. But those who are still projecting react with defensiveness, irritation, or denial. Feedback feels like a personal attack because it threatens the illusion of perfection they have built around themselves. They deflect blame, twist your words, or turn the mirror back on you, accusing you of the very faults they refuse to see in themselves. Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." But the projector never reaches that understanding. They are too busy escaping their reflection. The third sign is how a person relates to uncertainty. Those who have integrated their shadow can live with ambiguity. They understand that life is fluid, that not knowing is a natural part of awakening. They can say, "I don't know yet," and feel no shame in that honesty. Their calmness in uncertainty shows emotional maturity and spiritual strength. They don't need to control every outcome because they trust that clarity unfolds in time. This is the heart of spiritual awakening, the courage to dwell in the unknown. Projectors, however, are deeply uncomfortable with not knowing. They crave immediate answers, absolute truths, and simple explanations. Their world must make sense instantly, even if it's built on delusion. They cling to their beliefs not because they are wise, but because they are terrified of uncertainty. When you are around integrated souls, you feel safe. Their energy doesn't demand, drain, or dominate, it soothes. You can be imperfect and still feel accepted. But when you're around projectors, you feel tense, judged, and uneasy, as though walking on emotional eggshells. Their presence drains your spirit because they are unconsciously at war with themselves. Integration, therefore, is not about moral purity, but inner harmony. It is the quiet acceptance of one's humanity, the light and the dark, the flaws and the wisdom. Those who embrace this wholeness radiate peace. Those who deny it radiate pain. The greatest mark of spirituality is not perfection, but integration, the courage to see yourself fully and to stop using others as mirrors for what you refuse to face within. 8. From curse to superpower, integrated perception. When Friedrich finally confronted the darkness within him, the curse that once haunted his mind transformed into something extraordinary, a superpower of perception. What used to feel like a painful sensitivity to manipulation and deceit became the foundation of his spiritual growth. He realized that the very traits he once despised in himself were not his enemies, but his teachers. Through this awakening, he discovered what Carl Jung called integrated perception, the ability to see clearly without distortion or projection. The moment he stopped blaming others and started observing his own motives, his vision became sharper, his intuition cleaner, and his spirit lighter. He no longer feared the darkness because he understood that seeing it was not a punishment, but a path toward wholeness. As he journeyed deeper, Friedrich saw that his shadow had always been a mirror, reflecting the parts of himself he had refused to acknowledge. The more he denied his own tendencies to control, the more he saw manipulation everywhere. But when he accepted those aspects with honesty and humility, the projections faded. He began to discern between real danger and imagined threats, between what was truly dark and what was merely misunderstood. This was the alchemy of the soul, transforming judgment into wisdom and fear into awareness. In that moment, his spirituality matured, not as an escape from pain, but as a deeper understanding of it. With time, Friedrich realized that sensitivity was never his weakness. It was his power waiting to be refined. What once overwhelmed him with anxiety now guided him with precision. He could sense dishonesty, not to condemn it, but to understand it. He began to see the hidden dynamics in people, the energy beneath their words, the unspoken motives shaping their choices. Yet instead of reacting defensively, he responded with calm observation. He no longer saw the world as good versus evil, but as a living reflection of the human psyche, light and shadow intertwined. His perception became his prayer, and his awareness became his protection. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Friedrich lived this truth. By making his inner shadows conscious, he reclaimed the parts of his soul he had once abandoned. He no longer projected his inner chaos onto others, but learned to interpret life's patterns through the lens of spiritual wisdom. Integrated perception allowed him to walk through the world with both clarity and compassion, to recognize deceit without becoming bitter, to feel deeply without losing balance. His spirituality became a dance between discernment and love, where every emotion, even darkness, had something sacred to reveal. In the end, Friedrich's so-called curse was never a punishment. It was an initiation. His ability to see manipulation was not meant to destroy his peace, but to awaken his spirit. When he embraced this gift with humility, it turned into divine sight, a clear awareness that pierced through illusion. The lesson is timeless. When you stop rejecting your shadow, you stop living in fear. You begin to see truth as it is complex, multidimensional, alive. That is the essence of spiritual growth, to turn what once blinded you into the very light that guides your soul forward. And as we close today's reflection, remember that Jung's insight into the darkest corners of the mind wasn't meant to scare us. It was meant to set us free. When we face the shadow within, we stop projecting it onto others and start transforming it into light. That is where true growth begins. If this message has inspired you, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who values deep self-awareness, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Make sure to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our upcoming explorations into the mysteries of the human soul. Why chosen ones stay broke, and the hidden key to their abundance. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. Have you ever wondered why some of the most spiritually awakened souls struggle with abundance? On Spiritual Wisdom, we explore the hidden forces behind why chosen ones often stay broke, not because they lack worth, but because their journey demands inner alignment before outer prosperity. This video, Why Chosen Ones Stay Broke and the Hidden Key to Their Abundance, reveals how energy, mindset, and spiritual maturity intertwine in the dance between scarcity and divine flow. As you listen, ask yourself, are your beliefs expanding your reality or keeping you bound to limitation? Comment below your thoughts. What does abundance truly mean to you? 1. The financial struggle is a spiritual refusal, not a failure. Chosen ones don't struggle with money because they are lazy or incapable. Their struggle is born from a sacred resistance deep within their spirit. When their authenticity collides with the false expectations of society, a war ignites inside them. Their inner self cannot harmonize with the social mask they are asked to wear. The modern systems of earning, driven by manipulation, competition, and unconscious greed, feel like a betrayal of the soul's integrity. So their psyche refuses to play along. It's not financial failure, it's spiritual refusal. Their very being rejects anything that forces them to abandon their essence. The chosen one's resistance is a quiet act of rebellion, a refusal to sell their light for survival in a marketplace built on shadows. In truth, their so-called financial stuckness is a sacred initiation into higher awareness. Their soul understands that wealth without alignment leads to emptiness. So, life orchestrates pauses, delays that feel like stagnation, but are really moments of purification. The chosen one's higher consciousness protects them, creating discomfort to prevent them from becoming enslaved by the illusion of material success. Carl Jung called this inner conflict the war between the self and the persona, the eternal tension between what the soul truly is and what the world expects it to be. And until that tension finds harmony, abundance cannot fully flow. What looks like lack is actually the universe rearranging the chosen one's vibration to prepare them for wealth that matches their truth. Money itself is neutral. It merely amplifies the energy of the one who holds it. For the awakened soul, it is not money they reject, but the unconscious energy attached to it. They cannot bear to participate in systems where authenticity is replaced by manipulation, where truth is traded for image. This withdrawal is not weakness, it's spiritual self-preservation. The universe often isolates them to cleanse their energy field, to teach them that real abundance doesn't come from conformity, but from frequency. When their intentions, values, and vibration are purified, money becomes magnetized toward them naturally because it now recognizes a conscious steward rather than a desperate chaser. Jung once warned that what we resist persists. So, the chosen one's challenge is not to reject wealth, but to heal their relationship with it. The awakening begins when they stop seeing money as a symbol of corruption and start perceiving it as a vessel of consciousness. Wealth can serve the light just as powerfully as it serves the dark. It depends on who wields it. When the chosen one realizes that abundance is not a deviation from spirituality, but a dimension of it, everything shifts. Their psyche no longer views wealth as betrayal, but as balance, a sacred union between matter and spirit, between the divine within and the material world without. Their financial journey, then, is not punishment, but preparation. Every delay refines their vibration, teaching them how to hold energy without being possessed by it. They are being trained to manifest wealth that aligns with their purpose, not their fear. And once their energy is congruent with truth, abundance stops being a goal and becomes a natural state. In that moment, the chosen one learns the hidden key. Integrity is the real currency. Alignment is true wealth. And authenticity is the highest form of investment. When the soul and the material world vibrate together in harmony, prosperity ceases to be a pursuit. It becomes the inevitable result of spiritual awakening. Do you feel this truth in your soul? Comment with faith. I release lack and open my heart to divine abundance. 2. Childhood conditioning created a false link between worth and money. Many chosen ones carry a silent burden that began in childhood, when love was not freely given, but earned through pleasing others, performing well, or keeping peace in chaotic homes. Growing up in such environments, you learned that your value depended on how much you could fix, how quiet you could stay, or how selfless you could become. You played the role of the scapegoat, the healer, the peacemaker, each one teaching you to suppress your truth and to confuse exhaustion with goodness. This conditioning planted a false belief deep within your subconscious, that to be seen, to succeed, or to shine is dangerous. Because in the past, visibility meant punishment, jealousy, or rejection. So even now, when your soul longs for expansion, a hidden fear whispers that abundance will cost you love. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This insight perfectly describes why many spiritually awakened individuals remain stuck in cycles of lack. The inner child, who once believed love must be earned, now believes money must be earned the same way, through self-sacrifice, overwork, and endless giving. In this twisted logic, rest feels lazy, receiving feels selfish, and charging for your gifts feels wrong. The chosen ones often live as if poverty proves purity, as if struggle is a sign of divine favor. But spirituality was never meant to glorify suffering. True spiritual growth is not found in deprivation, but in the harmonious flow between giving and receiving, effort and ease, service and self-worth. When you begin to awaken spiritually, you realize that your relationship with money mirrors your relationship with yourself. If you secretly feel unworthy, undeserving, or guilty for wanting more, Your energy blocks the natural flow of abundance. Money, after all, is just energy, neutral, responsive, and deeply connected to how you value your own existence. Many chosen ones unconsciously reject financial prosperity because somewhere in their story, wealth became associated with corruption, pride, or betrayal of the soul. Yet this is a distortion born from fear, not truth. The divine never designed you to live in scarcity. The universe expands through you, and abundant spiritual, emotional, and material is part of your birthright. Healing this false connection between worth and money requires courage. It means allowing yourself to rest without guilt, to receive without apology, and to know that spiritual integrity and abundance can coexist. It means understanding that being visible, powerful, and prosperous does not make you unholy. It makes you whole. Every time you affirm your worth, you reclaim a fragment of power that was once lost in childhood. Every time you choose to receive with gratitude instead of shame, you realign with divine flow. The more you remember that love was never meant to be earned, the easier it becomes to accept that money, too, flows naturally when you stop resisting your own light. And as this awareness deepens, you see that abundance is not a prize for the deserving, but a reflection of consciousness itself. It is the natural result of a healed soul that no longer equates virtue with suffering. When you stop trying to prove your worth and start embodying it, the invisible link between pain and prosperity dissolves. You begin to attract opportunities, people, and experiences that match your new vibration of inner wholeness. In this state of spiritual growth, wealth becomes sacred, not because it defines you, but because it flows through you as an expression of divine balance, reminding you that being abundant is not about becoming someone new, but finally remembering who you have always been. 3. Inner misalignment manifests as financial blocks. When your inner world is out of alignment with your true purpose, it begins to show up in your outer reality, especially through financial struggle. You might think it's just bad luck or poor timing, but as Carl Jung taught in his spiritual wisdom, the psyche has its own mysterious way of protecting you from betraying your authentic self. When you walk a path that isn't in harmony with who you really are, your unconscious mind rebels. It creates resistance, exhaustion, and invisible walls around your success. You may notice this as burnout, self-sabotage, or endless setbacks that seem to come out of nowhere. But these obstacles aren't punishments. They are spiritual interventions. They are signs that your higher self refuses to let you compromise your truth for survival. Your soul knows when your actions contradict your purpose, and instead of letting you climb a ladder that leads to emptiness, it blocks your progress until you realign with what truly matters. This is why many chosen ones remain broke, not because they lack talent, intelligence, or effort, but because they are being purified through spiritual alignment. Money in the physical world is an energetic mirror of inner harmony. When your mind, heart, and purpose move as one, abundance flows naturally. But when you live in contradiction, doing what pleases others, suppressing your creativity, or denying your gifts, the flow of energy becomes restricted. You might work harder, yet achieve less, because your energy is scattered across false obligations instead of being rooted in authenticity. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This means that your financial reality often mirrors the hidden patterns within your psyche. The fears of not being enough, the guilt of wanting more, or the inherited beliefs that wealth corrupts the soul. For the awakened soul, wealth must first be internal. The chosen ones are not meant to chase money. They are meant to embody a vibration that attracts it. The universe cannot give you abundance if you secretly believe that having it makes you less spiritual or more selfish. These contradictions fracture your energy field and keep you trapped in cycles of scarcity. To break free, you must heal the inner split and honor both your divine calling and your human needs. True abundance is not about choosing between spirit and matter, but merging them. It is the realization that your spiritual mission deserves material support, that your gifts deserve compensation, and that service to others should never come at the cost of your own soul. Once you begin to align with who you truly are, when your work, words, and energy become extensions of your higher purpose, the block begins to dissolve. Opportunities appear where there were none. People start to recognize your value without you begging for it. The same energy that once felt trapped transforms into creative flow, courage, and clarity. This is not magic. It is alignment. The hidden key to your abundance has always been inner truth. When your soul feels safe, it opens the door. When your actions reflect your essence, the universe mirrors it with prosperity. So if you feel stuck, don't curse your struggles. Listen to them. They are sacred signals from your higher self, guiding you back to the path where your wealth, purpose, and peace coexist as one. Are you ready to realign your inner world and unlock your flow of abundance? Comment below. I choose alignment if you're ready to heal the energy within and open the door to prosperity that has always been meant for you. 4. The path forward is integration, not resistance. Healing your relationship with money is not about hustling harder or proving your worth to the world. It's about integrating the parts of yourself that you've long rejected. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And that is precisely why so many chosen ones, despite their wisdom and goodness, stay broke. They are unconsciously loyal to the patterns of lack. They inherited beliefs that whisper that having less makes them pure, that being visible makes them pure, them unsafe, and that desiring wealth somehow makes them unspiritual. But spirituality was never meant to keep you small. True spiritual awakening invites you to see that money itself is neutral. It only amplifies what already exists within you. The shadows you project onto it, shame, fear, guilt, are reflections of the inner work still waiting to be done. The real path forward is integration, not resistance. Shadow work is the key that unlocks this transformation. It means facing the fear of visibility that keeps you from stepping fully into your purpose. It means unlearning the generational stories that link virtue with struggle and holiness with deprivation. These beliefs are not noble. They are chains disguised as humility. The moment you stop rejecting wealth as something corrupting and instead see it as an energetic mirror, you begin to reclaim your power. You realize that abundance doesn't come from chasing external validation, but from aligning your inner world with truth, peace, and purpose. When your energy is clear, money becomes a natural extension of your spiritual alignment. To integrate means to separate your worth from your wage. Your value does not rise or fall with your income. It simply exists because you do. The chosen ones who master this truth understand that the universe responds not to effort alone, but to energetic congruence. You attract what resonates with your inner frequency, and that frequency expands when you stop letting shame dictate your financial story. Setting healthy boundaries is another act of spiritual self-respect. Say no to what drains your light, to jobs or people that pull you out of alignment, because every misaligned yes delays the abundance that truly belongs to you. The more you honor your truth, the more life compensates you with opportunities that feel peaceful, prosperous, and purposeful all at once. Abundance is not a number. It's a vibration. It is what happens when truth and peace coexist within your heart. You can have wealth without losing your soul, and serenity without sacrificing success. Soul-aligned work is the kind that makes you feel alive, and at peace is the sacred bridge between the material and the divine. When you serve from authenticity, you stop working for money and start co-creating with energy itself. The flow becomes effortless because you are no longer resisting who you are meant to be. The money you once chased begins to find you, not as a reward for labor, but as a reflection of wholeness. That is the secret Jung pointed toward, the integration of shadow and light, of spirit and self, of heaven and earth within you. And when that integration happens, abundance is no longer something you seek. It's something you naturally are. 5. Turn natural gifts into ethical, sustainable income. True wealth isn't born from the chase for money, but from aligning your spirituality with integrity and purpose. Many chosen ones stay broke not because they lack intelligence or talent, but because deep inside, they carry a subconscious fear that earning money means betraying their spiritual growth. Yet this belief is an illusion. Money itself isn't evil. It's neutral energy that amplifies the consciousness behind it. If your intentions are pure and your purpose is to uplift, inspire, or heal, then abundance becomes a divine tool rather than a temptation. As Carl Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that includes allowing your authentic gifts to sustain you. Turning natural gifts into ethical, sustainable income means building work that reflects your values. Teaching, writing, researching, creating healing tools, or building educational platforms that heal rather than exploit. These are not ordinary jobs. They are sacred callings disguised as income streams, designed to help you serve humanity while staying aligned with your soul. For many awakened souls, guilt surrounds the act of receiving. They feel that accepting payment for spiritual or creative work somehow taints the purity of their purpose. But this guilt is the remnant of old conditioning, not truth. Money is simply the echo of energy you've shared. It flows back to you as a mirror of the value you've given. Spirituality doesn't ask you to reject wealth. It asks you to approach it with consciousness. When your work is born from love, awareness, and contribution, earning becomes an act of sacred reciprocity. Spiritual growth is learning how to circulate energy with integrity, understanding that giving and receiving are two sides of the same divine rhythm. You don't have to choose between service and success, between humility and prosperity. You can live in harmony with both when your heart leads the way. Carl Jung taught, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The unconscious fear of abundance often comes from inherited beliefs, ancestral vows of poverty, early teachings that equated wealth with corruption, or past experiences where power was misused. But awakening means dissolving these inner walls and realizing that the material world is not separate from the spiritual one. True spirituality is not escape, it is integration. To grow spiritually is to learn how to bring light into the physical world, to bless your work, your finances, your creations with higher awareness. When you do this, your income transforms from mere survival to soulful contribution. So, dear listener, remember that your divine gifts were never meant to stay hidden or undervalued. They are seeds of abundance waiting to be nurtured through purpose-driven action. Every time you teach from your heart, write words that uplift, design something that heals, or create content that inspires, you are participating in the sacred exchange of energy. You are reminding the world that spirituality and abundance can coexist beautifully when aligned with truth. Let your work be your prayer, your income be your reflection of divine trust, and your success be proof that integrity and prosperity can grow together. This is the hidden key to abundance when your outer wealth becomes the echo of your inner wholeness. Stay connected with our spiritual wisdom community by subscribing to the channel. Here, we explore how spirituality and self-awareness can help you transform your divine gifts into ethical, sustainable abundance. 6. Redefine success. Money as exchange, not validation. True spiritual wisdom begins with redefining success itself. Most people chase money as a symbol of validation, proof that they are good enough, smart enough, or worthy of being loved. But as Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The real reason many chosen ones stay broke is not because they lack intelligence or talent, but because deep inside they associate wealth with danger, corruption, or loss of purity. Their spiritual awakening has taught them to reject superficial success, yet they forget that money is not evil. It is energy, a neutral tool that amplifies intention. When you truly understand spiritual wisdom, you realize that money should represent reciprocal value, not your identity. It is simply an exchange between souls, a symbol of trust and contribution. The more transformation you bring to others, the more life will flow back to you. You are not paid for your presence alone, but for the clarity, peace, and healing you bring to those who cross your path. Think about it. Every dollar you receive is an echo of someone's gratitude for the difference you made in their world. But the chosen ones often sabotage this flow because they confuse humility with self-denial. They hide their gifts, undercharge, or overgive until exhaustion replaces inspiration. Jung taught that the soul seeks wholeness, not perfection. And part of wholeness means embracing the material as sacred, not shameful. You are here to bridge heaven and earth, to let divine wisdom express itself through human systems, including money. When you see wealth as energy rather than ego, you stop fearing it. You begin to use it as a force of service. Each time you accept fair payment, you are telling the universe, I am safe to receive. I am ready to hold more. This simple shift rewires your nervous system, teaching your body that abundance is not chaos. It's alignment. Start small. Honor your boundaries. Let integrity become your brand. Because every honest action, every conscious choice, builds a new inner structure that can hold greater wealth without losing peace. You don't have to chase success. You only need to embody value. The world rewards those who bring light to the collective shadow. When you walk in truth, prosperity follows naturally. As Jung observed, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. So the key is not to earn money for the sake of proving yourself, but to allow your authentic self to express its highest value to the world. The more you become who you were meant to be, the more abundance flows through you effortlessly. So, remember this: money is not validation, it's communication. It's how the universe thanks you for sharing your divine gifts. You are not meant to stay broke. You are meant to stay true. Let your work be your prayer, your service be your legacy, and your integrity be your wealth. When you align spiritual wisdom with practical action, when your heart and hands work together, abundance no longer feels like something to chase. It becomes the natural rhythm of your awakened life. Comment below. I redefine success through purpose, not validation. If you're ready to align your energy with true abundance and live from a place of spiritual flow. 7. The true mission. Change the game. Don't compete in it. Chosen ones aren't here to compete in a rigged game. They are here to rewrite the rules entirely. They do not rise by dominating others, but by demonstrating that integrity, consciousness, and soul alignment can thrive in a world built on illusion. Their journey is slower, yes, but that's because every step is sacred. While others rush to prove themselves, the chosen ones are mastering the art of stillness, learning that true prosperity has more to do with vibration than with validation. As Carl Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that is precisely the chosen one's mission, to become a living embodiment of consciousness in motion. Their calm is their currency, their compassion is their wealth, and their clarity is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. They are not chasing abundance. They are becoming the frequency that attracts it effortlessly. At first, this path feels like a loss. The world celebrates competition, but the chosen ones find no peace in comparison. They are stripped of illusions, status, recognition, even material comfort, so they can remember what is eternal. Every challenge they face refines their spirit. Every delay strengthens their discernment. They realize that spiritual awakening is not about escaping the world, but walking through it awake, with eyes that see beyond the surface. The old ways of hustling, manipulating, or forcing outcomes no longer resonate because they understand that prosperity without peace is poverty in disguise. Their spirituality teaches them patience, and patience becomes their secret power. The deeper they walk into their purpose, the more they discover that true abundance flows where integrity leads. Money made without mindfulness dissolves, but wealth built from service and alignment multiplies naturally. The chosen ones live from this higher truth. Energy is the real economy. When your actions are rooted in love, when your intentions are pure, and when your focus is on giving rather than grabbing, the universe conspires to return everything multiplied. Jung's philosophy of individuation explains this perfectly. You must integrate all parts of yourself, light and shadow alike, to become whole. And when wholeness is achieved, prosperity follows as a mirror of inner balance. They learn to move at the speed of peace, not pressure. Their slowness becomes a statement of mastery, a quiet rebellion against the noise of competition. They embody success instead of chasing it, and that embodiment shifts reality itself. They stop fighting for a place at someone else's table and begin building their own, inviting others to taste authenticity. Their wealth becomes invisible, first measured in serenity, faith, and clarity before it manifests as opportunities, divine timing, and lasting success. In the end, chosen ones don't compete to win. They live to elevate the game. They don't dominate others. They demonstrate that the greatest victory is self-mastery. Calm, clarity, and compassion are not just virtues. They are currencies of a higher economy where the soul, not the system, defines abundance. True abundance begins the moment you stop chasing it and start aligning with it. As Carl Jung reminded us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. The chosen ones are not meant to stay broke. They're meant to awaken to the wealth of their inner world first, so that the outer world can finally respond. So take these insights and apply them. Shift your mindset, honor your worth, and let your actions flow from self-awareness rather than fear. Do you believe you're ready to unlock your divine abundance? Comment below with faith. I am aligned with true wealth. And if this message resonated with you, like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom for more deep insights that guide your journey of transformation.